We are live now. Great.
Now.
Great. I see the timer going, so we are live. So welcome everyone to the Azure Functions monthly webcast. Very excited to be joined here today with some members from the team. So even before I introduce myself, there are some new faces here and some old ones. Asavri, why don't you start and tell everyone who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I'm Asavri. I'm a program manager on the Functions team. I mostly focus on language extensibility, specifically building support for Python, Java, and also improving some of our VS Code development experience.
Great. Colby?
I'm Colby.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Closer to the mic, man. You got to get right up on the mic.
Yeah. Fine. Sorry.
You learn to love the mic during these webcasts.
See, last time I was on the webcast, we weren't so high quality.
We recorded out of a closet.
Conference room. Jesus. Anyway, hi everyone. I'm Colby. I'm also a PM on the Functions team. I work on a bunch of different stuff as well, but I recently have been focusing a lot of time on JavaScript. Also, if anyone has heard of the serverless community library, I spend a lot of time figuring out what we're going to do with that. So go contribute samples. Yeah, a couple other things as well. But
great, perfect. And then I'm Jeff, a PM on the Functions team as well. I just work on function stuff, I guess. So with that, if this is your first time joining, welcome. I feel so cheesy saying this, but it's like, please subscribe, stay notified on when we do these. We do it every. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. I did notice though ahead of time, before we even started recording, and I can look at it what it is right now. We had like 9 or 10 likes before we even recorded anything.
That's
so
awesome.
Let's see if we can get that number up.
Don't mess it up.
Until I know. I'm afraid by calling attention to it now, I'm afraid to watch this number potentially get thumbs down.
10.
But this is our chance as a team. So we're all working on the Azure Functions team. We want to share what's new, what's coming, shout out some community contributions, and let you know some upcoming events that you might want to be aware of. We even have some fun surprises today. You might notice there's a lot of cups floating around the table, so hang tight for that one. Asavri has no idea what's coming. So with that, the only thing I'd mention, there's a live chat window that you'll notice on YouTube, wherever you're watching this. We're keeping an eye on that. We're going to answer your questions as well. So if you have questions, comments, get yourself involved in the chat window and we'll answer those as we go. And I think that's it. So let's get right into it. I'm going to share my screen and we will share some stuff of what is new on this screen. Great. Okay, so what is new in the Azure Functions world since our last webcast in December? Here's a few of the big things I called out. .NET Core 2.2 support is a big one. So .NET Core release 2.2, we had a lot of people who were trying to use functions to build .NET projects and target 2.2, and it would throw issues and errors and exceptions. It took us a little bit longer to get this release out. It hit some snags along the way because we make sure we don't want to release any bugs as much as possible. But it's out now, so if you're interested in using 2.2, that's there. Next item I have on this list is around Java. Asavri, can you share? There's 2 updates here on Java. Any thoughts on these 2 updates around Java?
Yeah, the very first one, and I must say the engineering team's especially proud of this one, is a massive performance improvements. Now, we shipped a feature last month that basically goes ahead and starts the Java process even before we start the user's application. And so that's brought down our cold start and just startup time and cold start down by 10x the time it was before. Wow. And so we're super proud of this and really excited. There are customers who reached out and said, hey, this is great. I really am looking forward to when I can go into production. And that's leading up to the second announcement. We're soon leading up to the general availability announcement as well. I'm not going to share the date right now, but keep your eyes peeled for when this happens. We're hoping very soon.
Yep. Follow along on the blog. That one's coming too. And the other one too here is custom binding support. So I'll just give a little bit of a heads up on that. With Java today, one of the nice things about it is that like .NET, you can kind of attribute your code, so you don't have to manually craft the function.json. But sometimes people might have bindings that we haven't yet built the annotation support for.
Sure.
A good example of this is the SignalR binding that Anthony, who I know Anthony, I saw you in the chat window. Anthony helped write. I think we give a shout out to like Anthony pretty much every webcast. But now if you have any, whether they're your own custom bindings or bindings we just haven't yet done the annotations, you can also now do custom bindings in Java as well. So that released. Improvements to VS 2019. Colby, I didn't even prep you on this one. Do you know what the improvements to 2019 are? I know what they are.
No idea.
That's okay. I'll let you do the next one.
Thanks.
Or I'll actually let Savri do the next one. You've got stuff in the what's coming. So the improvements to VS 2019, if you know, that's in preview now. They announced it's going to release on, I want to say April 2nd. We'll go live.
That's right.
There were some quirks with the functions development experience in the preview 1 when it came to debugging that we knew people were running into issues with. If you're on preview 2, I think even just the other day mine upgraded to preview 3. Those have all been ironed out. So I wanted to call that out too. And then last one, there's been a lot of work happening in VS Code, both in terms of perf and Python. I don't know, Savri, if there's more details in those ones or if that kind of encapsulates it.
I can go over a little bit of what came along in the recent version. We basically significantly improved the startup time of the functions extension. So now when you create a project, it happens much faster than it used to happen before. The other thing is for Python support specifically, we're now using the PTVST debugger shipped by the Python extension, which I know a lot of the folks love and use. For our local debugging experience. So it's an improved version of what we had before.
And I think this is, I remember when I was doing Python before, very often I'd create a Python project and I'd get like an error right away that's like, you don't have PTVSD. And so I'd have to do like a pip install and then it worked.
Yep.
Does that fix that now so I won't see that anymore?
Basically, so we're no longer installing that module into your virtual environment. You can just rely on it to be built into the extension itself.
Cool. Very cool. Awesome. Great. We're going to take a quick pause here before we do what's coming, which I know is what everybody wants to see. Let me take a quick look at chat, but we have a short surprise too. So the next one is, and yes, everyone's chatting. Hello to everyone and hello to Anthony again. And yes, please like and subscribe. But before we go into what's coming, we do have a short surprise. So I had the chance last week to go to Australia to do Ignite the Tour, which was happening in Australia. I spent some time in Melbourne, attended the serverless user groups. I know a few people who I've even seen in the chat window I was able to meet with there. But as part of that, one of the fun things I want to do here live on the webcast is I was gifted these beautiful things called Tim Tams that I got in Australia. And if you're familiar or not, just something we wanted to do for fun now is I wanted Colby and Savri to have the joy of doing a Tim Tam Slam live on air before we tell you what's coming next in some of the functions roadmap. So to do that, I will show you both how it is done. And for those of you who are watching, you get to learn live.
Oh, so Jeff, you're also doing a Tim Tam Slam.
Oh, I have to teach you. Okay. So this is a Tim Tam. Okay. It's like a little biscuit or cookie. And what you do here is you have your hot chocolate. All right. And you bite off one edge of each. So like, you know? Maybe you can follow along so we don't take too much time on this. Okay, so it's already grab one. So you bite off one end of each. And so you make this now, this is now a straw. Okay? So Tim Tam Slam, you dip the biscuit in the hot chocolate. You drink up the hot chocolate. As soon as you feel the hot chocolate touch your tongue, you throw the whole thing in your mouth and it just dissolves instantly. Okay, so here we go. Ready? Live on the air. I hope you enjoy this. Oh, see, Savri, I knew this would happen. The biggest mistake here is if you don't get it in fast enough, it just dissolves. Oh, everyone's face is actually impressively clean. Thoughts, Colby, on how a Tim Tam Slam was?
So much better than a regular Tim Tam.
Better than a regular Tim Tam? Savri?
It dissolves really quickly.
I know. It just like melts instantly.
Amazing.
So that is what I want to bring back to the team. And thank you to Jeff. Simon and JT, who both took me around but also gave us these and told us we had to do them on the air. So feel free if you want and you're ambitious, you can keep slamming throughout the webcast. but I don't know if I'd recommend it. Okay, so
I'll
just
do it
some
while you're
fun.
talking.
Yeah, please do. Right after I ask you a question, Colby, which is coming up, just hurry and throw a Tim Tam in your mouth. Okay, and I see the chat window went off and people are enjoying. Oh, do it with coffee. It's good. So Colby actually has some coffee. Maybe
Sure, I'll try it.
Yeah. So wait for me.
You've got both the coffee and the hot chocolate going.
I do.
Just have options.
Why not? All right.
This is a professional. We upped the quality. So, all right, what's coming? I have a bunch of spoilers here. I'll grab the first ones, and then Colby, I'm going to need your help for the last two, and I think you even have a demo.
So you go first while I'm doing this.
Okay, all right, but you got to stay close to that mic, Colby. I keep worrying. I'm watching those levels. Okay, first one. We hit this one a few months ago. Azure Functions Premium Plan. It's still in private preview today. This is a plan that enables you to have more powerful instances, have some of those instances be always warm so you never hit cold start, and gives you things like VNet connectivity. Still in private preview. We're moving towards public preview, but if you want to join the private preview, you can follow that link here. I'm not going to spend too much more time on it today because we've talked about it before. This next one, though, I don't think we've hit on, which is a big one. This is bundles for extensions with the runtime. Savri, do you actually want to explain what this is and why it matters?
Sure. I think it's better to start with why it matters. That's my favorite part of it. Today, if you want to use any of the triggers or the bindings that we provide, you need to go ahead and install .NET SDK, which is ugly, especially if you're a Node developer or a Python developer or a Java developer. You don't want to install those things, right? And so what bundles is going to do is get rid of that requirement almost completely. So if you're using one of the standard extensions and versions, you won't need .NET SDK and you can just build out of the box. But we still have the capability going where if you did want to use a custom extension that you wrote or brought in or a custom version of the extension, you can still go ahead and use .NET SDK to be able to build those. So this is what we're calling bundles. We're all really, really looking forward to it and hoping this is going to really help the users who are non.NET developers simplify their life manyfold. Absolutely.
It's one of the more painful things where it's like you sit down with a JavaScript or a Python or a Java user and they're like, hey, how come my blob trigger isn't firing? Or how come my service bus thing is throwing an exception? And it's like, oh, you need the .NET SDK installed. And they're like,
also, hey, what's this funky extension.csprod file doing in my Node project?
Yeah, yes, that too, yeah. And so now that kind of goes away. It becomes implementation, and we bundle that with the runtime. So that's coming very shortly. The PR is actually open now. I was playing with it some yesterday. So keep an eye out for that in the next 2 or 3 weeks. This one, I've already seen noise in chat. .NET dependency injection.
Tim Tam injection.
I had to address this one because for those of you who are traditional listeners who've gone with us from a lot, you've heard me say dependency injection for at least a year now, which is unfortunate, which is why I put the egg timer here. Time's up. We've got to ship this thing. So we're so close. This is the very top of the backlog right now. I'm about to get on Fabio's bad side if I keep bugging him more about how we just need to accelerate this as much as possible. It is coming. We apologize it's taken longer than expected. There were some changes in the team as well as some other issues that popped up along the way that have made this take longer than I was hoping for. And I know even in the webcast, we wanted goals for as late as, or I guess for as early as last year, December. So I'm hesitant to even give a date right now because we've slipped the dates in the past. But needless to say, this is the top of the backlog right now. And you can at least be confident in knowing there will not be a day that goes by until this ships that when I go and sit down at my desk next to Fabio, the first question out of my mouth won't be, what's the progress of dependency injection? So I know he's working on it today. He actually started working from home today because he was like, I just want to focus on this. So it's high priority for us too. It's coming, and we want to have some stuff out for people to start using very shortly. These last two are for you, Colby.
Sounds good. So yeah, the first thing I want to do though is, of course, report back on my coffee.
Oh, you did one.
I did.
I didn't even notice.
Talking.
Yeah. How does it compare?
Good. It was very good. I would say that it was a nice. It was a nice kind of mixture of tastes as opposed to the overload of sweet.
Yeah, it's like all sugar, and now you get a little bit of
with the hot chocolate.
This is good because
this was also good. I would say I would kind of alternate maybe. I don't know.
I've been pondering because I was like, we probably can't do one of these webcasts every week just because we have to like do things in sprints. But maybe on the off weeks we do like a food review blog where we just get like treats from different places.
Well, I know we all like to eat.
So let us know in the comments if you want the Azure Functions food, and maybe we do like a TV review. Sabra, you could do a Game of Thrones webcast once that starts up and just dissect the episodes.
You really knew what I wanted with the Game of Thrones one. Yeah. I think Kobe's going to join me.
No, no Game of Thrones podcast will happen without me.
All right.
Yep. We've got a name in on the team now.
That's true. We do.
We do have a name in. This is fun.
Anyway,
Colby, DevOps and TypeScript.
DevOps improvements. Yeah. So some of the DevOps improvements that are coming, we'll just go through a couple of them quick. These are again things that are coming, so they're not 100% there yet, but some of them you'll start seeing pop up over the course of the next couple of weeks. The first one is some actual templates in Azure DevOps for functions tasks. So what that means is that in the sense that Azure DevOps supports really anything, it already supported functions. You can already do functions builds with DevOps if you knew what you were doing. Also, the way you would actually have to deploy those things was through this app service branded task, which kind of reveals a lot of implementation details and doesn't really give us the best experience for that, because it requires a lot of platform knowledge and it requires a lot of, I guess, heavy hand-holding to get started. Now what we're doing is we're making that a lot easier. We're releasing functions branded tasks within Azure DevOps. And what that means is that any user will be able to then go to Azure DevOps and figure out pretty easily what they need to do to get started. So we're starting, of course, with the GA offerings. So for first, that means the Windows offering, mainly .NET and JavaScript, of course. And then, of course, over the next X amount of time, I can't comment on dates, but we will eventually light that up for everything as well, because we do recognize that we want a way for functions users to very easily integrate with this great platform we have, Azure DevOps.
Right.
So there's that. Another thing we're doing is making it easier to get started with Azure DevOps from the Azure Functions portal. So we have this deployment center that we have already. We already have some integration with DevOps. You can set up a project, I believe, but that's just kind of a set of improvements that we're kind of doing over the next,
future. Yeah, no, it's a huge area of investment, though, that I know you've spent a lot of time.
Yeah, and
some awesome demos we have seen as a team.
Speaking of Australia, I want to give a shout out to our now former intern Ollie, who
who might be watching this from Sydney. We hope, Ollie, we miss you.
I think he's in New York, but no, he's in New York.
We miss you,
but anyway,
New York, Ollie.
We miss you, Ollie. He would appreciate the Tim Tams, I'm sure. But Ollie built a really incredible Azure CLI command that actually lets you get started with Azure DevOps and functions incredibly easily. So that, I believe, is set to ship in the next week or two. I don't know for sure. It's in whatever the next Azure CLI release is. And what that'll do is let you kind of set up right from your context, whatever you're developing on. You can set up a build that'll execute through Azure pipelines. And then you can actually set up a full CI/CD pipeline from there. Just because if you then go push to the whatever repo you set up, it'll actually be a functional CI pipeline, which is really powerful. Again, we'll get out more details on that once we actually have the release. But just something that I think is really cool that's coming as well.
Great.
So that moves me to the last point, which is TypeScript. So again, not going to give any dates, but Monday we are releasing a lot of improvements for the tooling for TypeScript. So the story here is essentially, in the sense that Azure Functions runs Node, we have always supported TypeScript. We had experimental TypeScript support in V1. I'll say that to this audience because I don't have to explain that. But in V2, we did not give out-of-the-box TypeScript support. But of course, if you knew what you were doing, you can kind of get around that because you transpile your code back to JavaScript, you deploy it in the correct places, yada, yada, yada. Things kind of just work. However, because of things like our default folder structure, this wasn't actually the easiest thing to get up and running. And we saw customers making kind of a lot of weird, not necessarily intuitive patterns for how to make this happen. So we decided that we were going to go and make this kind of a standard thing that we offer out of the box. So what that means is that on Monday we're announcing through the Functions Core tools and through the VS Code extension, you'll actually be able to get started with TypeScript out of the box. So what I'm going to show you today is kind of that CLI experience. Not the CLI experience.
I won't show your screen yet.
Some amounts.
There we go.
Perfect. Everyone can see my screen. Sounds good. So what I'll show you is first, this is one of the, well, it's not the exact template, but it's kind of a template for what you can imagine with functions.
Can you zoom in just a tad?
Yeah,
like one
absolutely.
Control plus.
Control plus.
There you go. Perfect.
So the first thing I want to point out is this @Azure-Functions typing package. Now this is actually beneficial to not only TypeScript developers, because theoretically a JavaScript developer can use that as well and get really nice IntelliSense on like what is the shape of an Azure Function object. Yeah, so that's really cool because it lets you know like what is in this context object that we pass into your function. What is in this HTTP request. So we see that as something that anyone can benefit from, necessary for TypeScript.
Love it.
Cool. So as you can see, we've got some, I'm going to zoom out one little thing so we can see the whole template. There we go. This is an example hello world. Again, it'll be very slightly different in the actual thing that ships. But the cool thing is that what we end up doing is that we'll use this template that is created automatically for us through either the CLI or VS Code. And we can then just go run it and everything works. So what I want to highlight here is that the actual the kind of the development flow that you would do with any typical Node project works here for functions as well. So if you click F5, it'll start up your functions host. It'll start up, it'll do a TypeScript compilation before that. It'll compile everything in output to this dist folder I have over here. And then we hook up everything nicely for you so that what's actually running is your dist folder, but it's compatible with our folder structure that we advise in functions. And what I mean by there is that every folder needs to have a function JSON file. These kind of point to the right locations in dist automatically for you. So I'm not going to get into too much detail there, but what I do want to do is show you that that's the other one. Here, if I just run really quick, npm install case. So I want to add an npm package here. Let's say import here, upper from case. And what I want to do is, just because that would bother me, I'm going to return upper of this. So I guess I did not prove to you that it did not do uppercase beforehand, but you'll have to believe me.
I believe you.
Thank you.
You would never lie to me live on air, Colby.
Oh, never. Of course not. So what I want to show you is that actually if we focus in down here to the bottom of the screen, that actually made things worse. If I run an npm start, what that actually does is it'll go through, resolve my dependencies. It'll actually run an npm run build, then it runs a TypeScript compile and a func extensions install, meaning that if this is just HTTP, but if I did have any extensions, they would resolve automatically.
Before bundles,
Yep, before bundles. And then, so this will take a second to run, but then once that happens, everything will be compiled to the dist directory. And then, if we open this up, so the restore is completed here. I guess it's taking a little while because I haven't run it yet. But what that does is that it runs a func start. And as you see here, this is just the regular thing you'll see when you're starting up functions. And we go to the endpoint, control click.
It hit it, but it didn't show it.
It did not. Yeah, there we go.
There it is, uppercased.
Boom.
Nice. And so now that is running your transpiled TypeScript, and it did it automatically for you just by running npm.
Yes, by
start.
running npm start here. If we go to the output folder, we can see in that dist we've got this hello world npm example with our JS file, which obviously is considerably more complex than the TypeScript file. But the cool part is that if I were to actually throw a breakpoint on here, we've got this mappings file as well. So if I'm not going to do it right now, but if I were to put a breakpoint on here, it would just hit that breakpoint and then hit the breakpoint in the TypeScript code, which then maps back to the correct part of the JavaScript code.
Nice.
So it all just kind of works.
I love it. That's very cool. I'm a fan of JavaScript, but when I see TypeScript, it just feels cozy. I'm just like, oh, give me those types. Give me those types. So that's a great demo. That's actually the first time I'd seen a lot of that get to this spot. So people should just keep an eye on for when this is available.
When this is going to be Available Monday.
I didn't know he was going to say the dates when we started this, but I have no qualms with this.
There aren't that. Say a date.
I did not. I did not specify.
Is that a day that which Monday is to be determined?
I figure it is this coming Monday. We are going to release this.
I'm surprised you didn't do Friday. It's your birthday.
That's true. That's true. Thank you for reminding us, Aubrey.
Tomorrow is my birthday.
Happy birthday, Colby! Turning the big
24.
I was actually not going to make you say the big 24.
24.
Yeah.
All right. So, moving right along then. Let's see. There's been a few questions that came in.
Yeah.
What do I have on the next one? I am going to do I'm going to actually highlight some community stuff quickly, and then I'm going to answer the questions. I've been taking note of them too. So, community highlights. These are a few, in all honesty too. I only went through like the month of February to pull a lot of these too. There were some in January that we missed and even December that we missed. So first and foremost, there's so much awesome content out here that it was hard to just choose the 6 that I pulled out here. But these were some of the really cool stuff, the top 6 that I did want to take some time to give some attention to. The first one, so at Azure Trenches, James Randall has posted this open source framework, I guess I would call it maybe, or a layering on top of functions called Function Monkey. It's really impressive. It's for .NET. It gives you a really streamlined way to write function APIs. He allows you to do some things like injecting and managing things like you're familiar of doing in .NET. So if that interests you at all, I would definitely recommend you go check out Function Monkey, contribute, create issues, help move that forward. I've been keeping an eye on it, and I always go and see what he's working on lately. I know just recently he did some cool Cosmos DB features so that you can monitor how well you're keeping up with Cosmos DB. So that's just one I wanted to give a shout out to. I think there's some cool stuff there. I wanted to point more people in the community to. Jeremy as well. He's actually a cloud developer advocate at Microsoft, and the other ones here are external. But this was specifically one that I wanted to call out because I've even seen some questions today on, hey, I need to move a V1 app to V2, and there's some snags that you might be hitting along the way. Jeremy moved one of his more complex applications from V1 to V2, and he documented it all in a blog that he just published last week. So I'd encourage you to check out that blog, and it has some nice tips and tricks along the way. Simon has been doing some awesome stuff around durable functions. So he wrote a really comprehensive blog post comparing end service bus sagas to durable functions, which is a really interesting comparison if you're familiar with either of those. But something that's really impressive too is he's been working on a Roslyn analyzer that will analyze your durable code and help let you know if you're doing something that's not a best practice. So it will like underline things if it's like, hey, this is referencing a function that doesn't exist, or if you're doing anything that's not a good pattern. He's been working on an analyzer that's also on GitHub that can help make sure you're writing good quality durable functions. So that's amazing effort and work there from Simon. Moving along too, Serverless 360 has been shipping so much awesome content. In fact, they've recently shipped this page called serverlessnotes.com that covers functions, logic apps, and more. And they actually have, I was just looking at it the other week, something like 8 articles specifically for like, here's some best practices in Azure Functions, whether it's exception handling or other things too. So keep an eye on that. I'd encourage you. They've been an awesome partner in the community as well. And then finally, Howard recently posted a blog post around using ML.NET, durable functions, and Azure Functions to do some ML scenarios in a serverless way. I actually saw one of the biggest pieces of feedback he got was like, hey, can this code be on GitHub? And coolly enough, Howard was like, actually, we wrote this for real. So before I can publish it to GitHub, I have to remove some of the sensitive information. But he documented kind of his experience and his learnings there. So I'd recommend checking that out too. And as I mentioned before, there's a lot more here that I didn't even have the time to call out. But those were a few. I just want to say thank you from myself and from the team. For producing some great content. I don't know if I missed any that you're all aware of, or just more kudos from your sides too.
I would just say every day we go look at Twitter, and then there's a new blog post or someone else that built something cool with functions that they want to share with the world, and it's super cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
All right, let's answer some questions, and then we'll wrap it up with some announcements on where we're going. And where's the shout out to Max? That's true. Usually we also have a shout out to Max every webcast too. We've got to figure out a way. We're just gonna have to do like credits at the beginning or end where we're like, hey, here's the 20 people we want to say hello to and happy birthday to.
And the entire dev team.
Yes. All right. So let's answer a few of these. I'll throw some of these out.
I think the first one that I saw people asking about was PowerShell.
Go for it. You know the answer? You want me to take it?
I could give the answer, but why not?
Is it the official one?
That's my.
Sabri actually is probably the best one to do this. What is the official answer for PowerShell?
Our official, let me give the real scoop maybe.
Oh, ooh. Yeah. Oh, boy.
So we had recently, well, not so recently, a few months ago, Eamon and Anirudh join our team, who are really well versed with how PowerShell works and all the scenarios that are possible with PowerShell. So with that happening and our new V2 language extensibility model, they went ahead and built a PowerShell language worker that essentially provides you the same experience for development similar to what we have for Node or Java today. And so you can go build out your functions, run them on an app service plan or a consumption hosting plan, things that you're already familiar with on the Windows offering that we have. And this, right now, PowerShell core support is in private preview. So if anybody wanted to try it, they could definitely reach out to our team and we'll help them out with it. We're also looking forward to actually going ahead and making this public soon in the coming semester.
Cool. Great. That's a perfect update. All right. Next one, too, that I see. I don't know if you know this one, Colby, or not. So it's fine if not.
Give it a shot.
Zero downtime deployments and slots. Do you know what the status with slots is on that one?
Yeah, I know. Generally, I would say that this is a thing that we've wanted to do for a while, but it's kind of always been like one of those next things on the list kind of thing. But I can say that we are, I think, prioritizing it coming forward. So the goal is to have something this semester.
That's right.
But I don't know the official date or anything, but I do want to say that it is something that we recognize we haven't been prioritizing and want to prioritize going forward.
That's right. And I think we've even talked about it on the webcast before. The main gap with the preview and why it has the preview tag today is in the consumption plan, when you do a slot swap, we are not today matching your scale before we do the swap. So if you've scaled out to like 20 instances and then you do a swap, you might be swapping to 0. So the work that is currently planned for the semester, at least that's the goal. And when we say semester, that's before July 1st. We have some semester goals, and this is one of the big ones, is to just finish that capability so that we'll scale to match and then start swapping one at a time. So perfect. Migrate from consumption to app service plan. I'll take this one because there's actually a GitHub issue I just commented on yesterday. I don't know the official answer. Well, I know the official answer. I don't know the issue that I just commented on, but it's on github.com/Azure/Azure-Functions. There's an issue. I might figure it out and paste it in. In short, you can do this today via the Azure Resource API. So we have lifted the restriction that you can move back and forth between consumption and dedicated. The one thing I would call out, though, is that there are some settings that you have to have in consumption that you do not have to have in dedicated, and in fact aren't given to you by default when you publish a function into the app service plan, specifically mapping your function to a storage account to store your code files. So there's more details on the issue about making sure you have the right settings. Again, github.com/Azure/Azure-Functions has one on this exact thing. The other thing I would note, though, is we are actually working. There's a meeting happening, I think, in 30 minutes. We're going to be doing some improvements in the coming weeks to allow you to move from a consumption offering to a dedicated offering, specifically the Azure Functions Premium plan. And you could do that just in the Azure portal. You just open up portal.azure.com. You're like, hey, I want this to have dedicated cores. Maybe now I want to go back to consumption. So it will be as easy as clicking a button in the portal. So something we want to make easier. You can do it today, but there's some gotchas, and we're continuing to work through it. And I think there was one, too, I'll just hit this as well, which was, what can I do about cold start? Other than the other things that, like Colby has a great blog post on, the Azure Functions Premium plan is the surefire way to make sure you won't hit cold start, because you're actually, as a service, we are now keeping instances warm constantly at a base level.
Speed cold start by eliminate the problem.
Yeah, sure. And at the same time, and I always want to mention this too, we're still investing, like we just called out, we're making it better for Java, even in the consumption scenarios. The next one, we're doing this for Python too. So I don't want you to think we're not also investing in the other, but in the meantime, in parallel, we'll give you this premium option if you're okay with that option while we make it better all around. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me grab one more of these questions, and we'll do questions for like another 5 minutes, and then we'll do some events that we're going to and announcements as well.
There's a question about Key Vault integration.
Go for it.
Any upgrade for Key Vault integration in app settings? Do you know?
So I saw Matthew just responded on a thread on this today. The first is make sure you know the latest stuff. So in November, was it November or even September?
I think it was whatever.
Yeah, we did a bunch of improvements where now you can pull binding connection strings, trigger connection strings in any environment variable from Key Vault directly. Using some integration. I know there's some stuff on the roadmap planned. I know one of the things that we're looking at trying to wrap our minds around are things like, what if I want to do things like key rotation? How do we do a better experience in the Azure portal so that I don't have to manually type in the Key Vault expression, but maybe there's some UI to guide it? I know those are all things that Matthew Henderson has been working on, but I couldn't commit to like a timeline or anything. I know he was saying there's nothing to share other than that, some of the stuff we're thinking about.
I think that's accurate. Yeah. There's a question about functions filters.
Ah, sure.
Which I'm fairly sure that the official word on this one is basically we're not actively investing in it, and I don't think there are any plans to change that at the current time. If there's feedback that we should, that would be super valid. So if anyone has a strong reasoning why we should, we'd love to hear about it. But as of right now, I'm fairly sure that's a project that we're not.
That's accurate. It's specifically like things like dependency injection and some of the other stuff we've talked about are higher right now. This did come up even this week, incidentally enough. The scenario we see filters the most for is like I have some piece of code that needs to execute for every HTTP request before I actually hit the function. So the most common ones I see is like auth. I'm passing in an auth token. I want to validate it. But rather than putting in the validation code for every function, let me just put it here and have that filter it before I ever trigger it. So there is the preview today. Like you mentioned, though, we don't have anything immediate planned. I'm hoping dependency injection might make some of this easier because you can start to inject things into your pipeline. But I still don't actually have a clear answer on this. Colby, you were exactly right. But something we are looking into. Let's see. Any other questions anyone sees? I see one on scale controller. I guess I can answer quickly. So someone wants to understand how the scale controller works. I guess the one I would say, so we actually are working on some content right now. We just did it in an internal conference called Microsoft Ready to people internal Microsoft that really went deep into how the scale controller works. We're evaluating right now at a team how we can package that up for something that we might be able to do at like a build conference. Though in the meantime, I actually did just do some in-depth stuff into how the scale controller works at one of the user groups I was at Australia, specifically SSW, so SSW TV. They recorded it and they actually just published it. So if you go to like sswtv.com.au, I think that's the address. There's actually a user group I did where I talked about functions. It's like an hour long, but if you skip to like the 20-minute mark, I actually go and explain how scaling works, and then I show it live in App Insights. So for that one specifically, that's the best thing short term. We also have some docs on it at docs.microsoft.com, and I mentioned we're as a team kind of figuring out other avenues that we can do. Any other questions that we didn't grab that anyone sees?
Is APIM Premium Plan sharing the same base instances as Functions Premium?
Not API management. It is sharing the same instances as App Service Premium, meaning the same underlying infrastructure, but not API Management Premium. Though both will allow it to interface with your VNet. So like you could have them logically grouped together and they would work well together, but I guess behind the scenes, the nuts and the bolts is that they aren't one-to-one, but hopefully that doesn't matter. Like that's kind of my thinking is like, how we host it or what pool of instances we grab hopefully is irrelevant, but that's the answer. Any other ones? Should we move on to
the next update?
When's the next webcast?
No, when's the next deployment update?
Oh, there's a deployment going out right now that we're just working out some of the kinks on. But usually we release every 2 weeks. And you can go to github.com/Azure/Azure-functions-host and see the releases and see exactly when we check in the code. It's usually about 5 or 6 days after we check in a release that it rolls out globally. All right, should we switch to announcements and then we can circle back around if there's any last questions?
I think so. That sounds good.
Let's do it. Okay.
Also, we wanted a link to that thing that you referenced a minute ago.
Oh, yeah. I will dig that out.
Sounds good.
Lots of events. So these are all of the places in the next 5 months that somebody on the Azure Functions team will be at one of these locations. So first off, heads up, if you're in the area, these are events that you might want to think about attending. But also if you're in the area, send us a note, send us a direct message on Twitter, or ping us, send us an email, whatever. We would love to do meetings, meetups, whatever. So I guess, Savra, you can actually just call out, I think 3 of these are that you'll be going to. You want to call those 3 out?
Sure.
Or 4.
So what's the 4th one? Yeah, of
Build.
course. The Build conference. All of us go to Build. It's always fun. So I'll be at Serverless Days Boston. That's happening on March 12th. I'm going to be talking about running specifically machine learning scenarios using Python functions. Pretty excited about that. It's a good lineup as well. The other one is Serverless Days Amsterdam. This is one that both Eduardo and I are going to be attending, and both of us have some exciting content prepared for that one. Definitely looking to meet up at other serverless meetups and events around the place. So definitely reach out for that one as we'll be there in town for a while. And then the third one is PyCon. Since our Python preview announcement, there's been a bunch of interest in what we've built. We're still going on improving it. And we think PyCon would be a good place to throw in some labs and workshops and actually get you developing and hacking with the team itself. So that's the other one. And then, of course, Microsoft Build. You should all attend Build. It's my favorite conference at Microsoft, period. I love attending Build. Yeah.
And Build this year is changed. Most of you probably know, open call for content as well. So any of you watching who are function champions or function newbies, you should consider doing a call for content. And if you're interested in even potentially working with us or having us evaluate your submission before you do it or whatever else, like, we want to help the community in this aspect as well. We just met this morning on exactly this. So.
We did, and we had that exact conversation.
We did. Colby, you want to call out the ones here? I guess there's 2 here for you. And
yeah,
2 for me.
I'm definitely going to Build. I'm pretty sure I'm going to AngularConf. So I
twist his arm on it, make him go.
Salt Lake City's fun, but
yeah, you were just skiing there.
I was actually just skiing there, last weekend. But anyway, those 2 I'm definitely most likely going to, and hopefully some more as well. But.
Great. And then the only other ones for me that were on there, I switched aside. So I'll be at Ignite the Tour in Amsterdam. So I'll also be in Amsterdam, but it's a week before Savri and Eduardo get there. Eduardo will be in Copenhagen as well. So he'll be in Europe kind of the end of March, beginning of April. So anywhere in Europe is kind of fair game right now. And then Integrate in London, it's later on, but in June, I'm planning on going out to London as well. So that's it for events. I'm doing a double check. It looks like there were some corrections on my links, so thank you for sharing that out. And oh yeah, that's right. It won't let people paste links except for me. So I'm sure there's actually some very helpful people who are trying to tell you the links for the stuff I've just mentioned. I will find them now and paste them into the chat window even after we stop recording.
If there are any other questions, I think we can hopefully answer them after.
Yes. And the only one of the 2, there are lots of other Ignite the Tours happening that even if we're on the team not going to, there's awesome advocates, whether it's Anthony or Brian or whomever else, Jeremy, who are going. So if there's an Ignite the Tour in your area, you should go. At the one in Sydney, I went to the function sessions and the serverless sessions. They were all top quality. Great community there. So please go. So with that, I think that's it for today. If you have any other questions or you're watching the recording, hit us up on Twitter. We're very responsive. We're keeping an eye on that. Subscribe to the channel for a notification on when we'll be streaming in March, and we'll do another one of these webcasts in March. That's it. Any other closing remarks? Probably no Tim Tams. It'll probably have to be, what are you going to bring us? Oh, I guess that'll be before Amsterdam.
It'll be before Amsterdam. Maybe
so what am I going to bring from Amsterdam? Because I might be might be between.
Yeah.
Stroopwafels.
I was going to say, it's a Savri's.
I'll go hunting then.
So that's it. Thank you all so much, very much, and join us next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Great.
Thank you.